She stood in the arena with the confidence of a goddess. Her bow drawn, her eyes sharp, and her voice echoing through the crowd as she declared the same boast she had repeated for years, that her arrows never missed, never failed, and most importantly, never returned to her. Her people believed it, the galaxy respected it, and every warrior who had ever faced her feared it. But everything changed the day a human stepped forward, quiet and unimpressive, almost laughable compared to her towering presence and legendary skill. No one understood why he accepted her challenge. No one expected him to last more than a heartbeat. And yet, when she released her arrow, faster than thought, sharper than death, he didn't fall. He didn't even flinch. Instead, in a moment so impossible it silenced the entire arena, he turned her own arrow back toward her, sending it thudding into her armor. The crowd gasped, her pride shattered, and she stared at him as if seeing a creature from another world. That single act defied her legacy, broke every rule she lived by, and marked him as the one opponent she could neither forget nor ignore, setting the stage for a story where pride, power, and fate collide. The warrior who feared nothing. She was known across 7 systems by a single title, the Arrow Queen. Her people treated her as a living legend, a warrior whose arrows flew with such deadly precision that even machines couldn't predict their curve. In every tournament, in every duel, she stood undefeated. Her boast, "My arrows never returned to me," wasn't arrogance. It was truth. No one had ever survived long enough to prove her wrong. So when a human, small in stature and wrapped in dust-stained traveler's clothes, stepped into the arena to challenge her, the crowd erupted in laughter. To them, a human was fragile, breakable, barely worth acknowledging in combat. But something in his eyes made her pause. Calm, unshaken, as if he had already seen the outcome. She drew her bow with a smile, confident this would be the quickest victory of her life. Little did she know, this unremarkable man was about to shatter her legacy and shake the foundation of everything she believed about her own invincibility. When she released her arrow, it wasn't merely fired, it sang. It cut through the air in a silver blur, moving so fast that even trained warriors lost track of it. Normally, the match would have ended right there. But this human didn't move. He lifted his hand gently, almost casually, and in an instant, too fast for the crowd to process, he redirected the arrow with a flick of his wrist. Gasps filled the arena, confusion spreading like wildfire. Her eyes widened, the first crack in her unbreakable confidence forming. The arrow spun in a perfect arc, an impossible arc, and came flying back toward her. She barely had time to raise her armor plating as it struck her shoulder with a resounding thud. The arena fell silent. Never in her entire life had her own weapon been turned against her. She looked at the human, no longer with contempt, but with a dawning realization. This was no ordinary opponent. This was someone capable of defying her fate. The audience roared in disbelief, but she heard none of it. Her focus remained locked on the human who stood before her with unsettling calm. Pride had carried her through countless victories, but now pride was tearing through her like a blade. She stormed forward, demanding an explanation. How did he do it? What trick had he used? What forbidden technology did he hide? He simply shrugged and said, "Maybe your arrow wanted to go home." That infuriating answer stoked her anger further. No one mocked her, no one survived her arrows and then joked about it. She lunged to seize him, but he stepped back lightly, not out of fear, but almost like he was guiding her movements, reading her before she even acted. She realized she was being outmatched not by strength or speed, but by something far more unsettling: understanding. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of defeat, not physically, but internally, down where her legend had always felt secure. After the match, she tried to walk away, but her pride wouldn't let her. The arena elders declared the human the winner, but she refused to accept such humiliation. In her culture, a warrior who was defeated by their own weapon had to submit to the victor's authority until honor was restored. She despised the rule, had mocked it before, but now it wrapped around her like chains. She approached the human with trembling anger and declared, through clenched teeth, that by ancient custom she was now bound to serve him. He looked confused, even embarrassed, and tried to refuse. but the elders enforced it. Her reputation demanded it. And so she stood beside him, furious, humiliated, but unable to escape. The human tried to lighten the moment with humor, but she didn't laugh. She silently vowed to regain her honor, even if it meant following him into the darkest corners of the galaxy, until she found a way to defeat him once and for all. The journey began, awkwardly. She walked behind him like a soldier following a commander she didn't respect. Yet, the more she observed him, the more questions she had. He wasn't a warrior. He didn't carry weapons. He didn't boast. He didn't even act like a victor. He treated their bond like a burden he didn't want, constantly trying to give her space, which only frustrated her more. Why wasn't he using his authority over her? Why wasn't he demanding anything? She had spent her life believing that power was meant to be used, dominance meant to be shown. But he didn't fit any version of strength she understood. When they were ambushed by raiders one night, she expected him to hide. Instead, he stepped forward calmly, disarming 3 attackers with movements so fluid they almost looked accidental. She watched in disbelief. He never struck with anger, only precision. She began to wonder if defeating her had not been luck, but a glimpse of a skill far beyond her understanding. Eventually, she demanded answers, and this time, he gave them. He revealed that humans, though physically weaker, had a unique ability rare in the galaxy: predictive perception. They could read micro-movements, patterns, tension shifts, subtle cues that allowed them to anticipate attacks before they happened. Most humans never discovered this ability, but he had trained his since childhood. It wasn't magic, it wasn't technology. It was instinct sharpened into mastery. Her arrogance evaporated as she listened. His calmness, his timing, the way he had returned her arrow, it all made sense. She didn't feel humiliated now. She felt enlightened. Her entire life, she had relied on raw skill, speed, and power. But he had defeated her with something far greater: understanding. For the first time, she looked at him not as an enemy, but as someone worthy of respect. And respect for her people was the beginning of loyalty. As they traveled, something began to shift between them. She found herself studying him the way one studies a teacher. She even tried practicing the strange techniques he showed her, though she was far from mastering them. He pushed her to think differently, to fight with her mind, not just her strength. Slowly, a bond formed, built not on defeat but on growth. She protected him on dangerous missions, and he trusted her in ways no one else ever had. Their conversations moved from combat and honor to curiosity, dreams, even laughter. She began to enjoy his presence, his quiet confidence, his strange human humor. And one night, she admitted quietly that he had done more than defeat her. He had changed her. The proud warrior who once believed she needed no one now understood the power of partnership. Her final test came when her people demanded she return and reclaim her honor through a rematch. She accepted. But this time, she wasn't fighting out of pride. She was fighting for truth. When she stepped into the arena again, she fired her fastest, deadliest arrow. The human didn't return it. Instead, she caught the arrow mid-air herself, a feat she had once believed impossible. The crowd erupted. She had surpassed even her former legend, yet after the victory, she walked not to the throne, but back to the human. She bowed and said with the pride of a warrior and the softness of someone who had found where they belonged, "My arrows may return to me, but so do I, and I choose to return to you." At that moment, the galaxy understood. She wasn't his because she lost. In the end, her story wasn't defined by the single moment her own arrow struck her back. It was defined by everything that came after. What began as humiliation transformed into growth, respect, and a bond she never expected to find. The warrior who once boasted that her arrows never returned discovered a far deeper truth. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating others, but from allowing yourself to learn from them. And the human who stood against her didn't take her pride, her power, or her freedom. He simply showed her a new path, one she chose to walk beside him. As the galaxy watched their unlikely partnership unfold, they became a living reminder that strength comes in many forms, and destiny often appears in the moments we least expect. Their journey was just beginning, but one thing was certain: Wherever they went next, they would face the stars not as enemies bound by fate, but as allies bound by choice.